So, I've been using TikTok to just kind of talk a little bit about my experiences with racism and Christian education, and just a lot of the topics that are really hot right now, but not speaking from a theoretical or philosophical or even political perspective, but just sharing from my own life experiences. And again, as I've said before, I'm not doing this to make these difficult times centered around me, but I feel like somewhere out there in the universe are people who really are confused right now. And I'm being gracious when I say that. Understand that they're just people who haven't had certain experiences, haven't met people, can only go by what their pastor or their favorite political leader is saying or what the news is saying. And they haven't really had interactions with people that can explain their human experience and give them another perspective. And even though I recognize that my sharing is probably not going to change the world, I don't believe it's going to change the country. Not enough people follow me to do that. I am just trying to reach out to those. I don't know that's going on. I'm really looking for those who feel genuinely lost in the mess that's going on right now. And they want to know truth and to be able to have some civil discourse around that. So, let me talk to you about when I was a DEI hire. Now, I have a lot of experience with this in my career life, but I'm going to talk about one specific incident. Sometimes DEI can be very ambiguous, and just by language that you hear in your interview that you're probably a DEI hire. It's sometimes not very explicit. I'm going to talk to you about a time where I was explicitly a DEI hire, and I want you to hear what I went through in that process. I was a public school teacher in Montgomery County Public Schools for the first 6 years I was out of college. It was my first teaching job. And this is how I got it. I was at Howard University finishing up my bachelor's in elementary education. I had done my student teaching observations in DC public schools. I lived close to DC, so I expected that I would probably be teaching in DC, and I was all set. Montgomery County Public Schools at the time, and I think they still struggle with this, but I digress, did not hire a lot of Black teachers. And so due to things like DEI efforts, affirmative action, they were under pressure to hire a certain amount of Black teachers. Now, some people may hear that and say, "Oh, see, that's discrimination." But DEI and affirmative action were created to stop discrimination. So listen to what I said. Montgomery County Public Schools, which is a county just outside of DC, and there are Black people that live there, they were rarely hiring Black teachers. So usually if you see an organization, a church, a business, an institute, or any type of community that hardly has any Black people, that is intentional. And some people may say, well, when we see Black organizations like HBCUs and so on and so forth, that's intentional. But it's a little bit different. Because, for example, let's take Howard, an HBCU. Yes, it's predominantly Black, but I always had a lot of white professors there. I always had white classmates. And truth be told, most, if not all, HBCUs have a large number of all types of races that go there, and often white professors that work there. So you don't see discrimination in HBCUs. So I've heard people say HBCUs are segregated schools. There should be no such thing. They should not be allowed to have an all-Black school. And it's not called an HBCU because it's only all Black. It's called an HBCU because that particular school or college started out being a school right after the Civil War. And when Jim Crow came into being and America would not allow Black people to be educated with white people, Black schools were started to educate the newly freed people because America would not allow us to learn in the same schools with white people. And so these schools, which are now called HBCUs, are what we would call something like a normal school, like St. Augustine was that. And these were schools where Black people could get their education because legally America would not allow Black people to be educated with white people. And so those schools that started out just providing basic reading instruction, math, different trade skills so they could make a living, ended up turning into colleges. And then as they grew into colleges, they became established because white colleges legally were not allowed to accept Black people. And so we say the word HBCU as a way to honor that the courage and the bravery of people to start schools where Black people could be educated. And oftentimes, these first Black schools, most if not all, were funded by white people who had the conviction and the money to make it happen. So like Howard University is named after a white man who served in Lincoln's administration. Okay? Same thing with Morehouse is named after a white man. All right, so I got a little bit off on the trail, but I just wanted to clear up that discrepancy. And so a lot of times when white people don't go into Black spaces, whether it be a Black church or Black university, it's not because they're being discriminated against, it's because they don't want to be the minority. Black people typically do not discriminate. I'm not just saying that just to say that. They typically don't. They may give service to our people when we are rejected from white spaces. And that's not discrimination because it happens to us so much. And so in my case, when I was coming out of Howard University, getting my degree in elementary education, Montgomery County Public Schools was getting a lot of heat for rejecting Black applicants. And it was obvious because they had all of these schools with hardly any Black people working in them. And so when you see an all-white space, don't believe that they couldn't find qualified Black people. That's not true. There is always this process to rule us out. I have experienced it. My friends have experienced it. My family has experienced it. And so affirmative action, DEI, was created to try. It was very flawed. I'm not a fan of DEI, but that's for another conversation because I'll just say this, DEI, unlike what some others may say why they don't like it, I didn't dislike it because of discrimination. I don't like it because racist people were running it. I have worked in organizations with DEI programs, and the person running the DEI program was racist. And so it was more so, I look at DEI as kind of like a plantation. And then when the white person on the plantation chooses a Black person to be the overseer, so that he don't have to deal with them Black people. And so the overseer thinks he has some type of power and authority when he really is just a puppet of the master, and he's only been set up to just keep the slaves quiet. That's how I see DEI. I have not seen it run the way it should. But that, again, is another topic. In my case, Montgomery County came to Howard University and asked, we need some Black teachers. So I think 8 of us were chosen to do our last year of student teaching in Montgomery County Public Schools, specifically because they wanted Black teachers. That was explicitly DEI. We went into a school and the principals did not want us there. The principals did not want us in Montgomery County. When we would get together after we're doing our in-service, we would talk about how mean our principals were to us. And in my particular school, the principal made it very clear she did not want us there. And she wrote letters to the county saying she did not want us there. The teacher I worked under overrode what the principal said and talked about what a good and committed teacher I was. And they took her word over the principal's because she was working directly with me. That is the only reason why I got in there. I didn't even know that happened. When I finished and graduated from high school and got hired by a principal, that principal told me what happened. And she said, I hired you because you must have been really good if that teacher spoke up on your behalf. And so that is what we go through in DEI. DEI is not about us not having the experience.